Well, hey guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the build of the 339. This is video number 3 in the series. I think we're going to wrap this aircraft up in this episode. It may take another one, I'm not quite sure yet. We still have a lot to do, but I'm wearing my orange shirt to match the aircraft in spirit of the 339. So let's get busy putting this thing together. All right, so last episode we got all of our surfaces done. So our wings are finished, our horizontal vertical stabs are finished, and we are ready to move on to the next step. Let's check the manual and see what we are supposed to be doing. All right, so as we've been going through this assembly, we have been pretty much following the manual as far as steps goes. The reason for that is so if you guys are following along, it's going to make the most amount of sense. We've done all our steering in the last one. We got our front retract installed. It tells you to start installing the module and batteries and stuff. We're not going to worry about that right now. So we're just going to leave that. Next thing we're moving on to is the fuel tank assembly. So let's pull all of our parts out and take a look at the fuel tank. Looks pretty straightforward. Looks like there's no surprises or anything, but we'll check that out. So here's all of our tank hardware. We've got our aluminum plate, which is, this bolts into the fuselage with our knurled screws here. These are pretty slick, aluminum thumb screws. We've got all of our hardware for the tank and our tank itself. So this is the upside of the tank, gets zip tied to the mount. So pretty slick setup. One of the things that we're going to be changing on this aircraft is we're not going to use the standard felt clunk that comes with it. We'll just use a standard clunk. And part of the reason for that is we are using a nice UAT on this aircraft as well. And these can be a little bit restrictive. So we're just going to go with a standard clunk setup. The zip ties, I'm assuming, are for tying the tubing onto the brass fittings. We're not going to use that. We're going to use safety wire. So we're going to get this stuff assembled. The assembly is pretty straightforward. It explains it quite well in the manual as far as what you want to do here, but I'll put my thoughts together and we will come back and take a look at how it differs from the manual. Okay, so we got everything assembled here for the tank. The vent line is the longer one. Next thing we want to do is we want to take our torch and our solder, and we're just going to put a blob of solder on, on these ends and then this end. This one doesn't matter because it's just getting folded up, so we don't need to do anything on the vent line. But what that's going to do is when we put our fuel line over top of this, it just keeps the fuel line from pulling off, and then we'll safety wire it on as well. So it doesn't need to be fancy, doesn't need to be all the way around. So I'll get this done and I'll show you guys what it looks like. Okay, so that's all you're looking for is just a little dollop of solder. Again, it doesn't need to go all the way around. And that's it. So this is basically ready to go in the aircraft now. There's a couple things we want to do. Number one, we want to make sure that we bend the rigid tube here up towards the top of the tank. So all I do in this case is just take this, kind of line it up, figure out how much we need to bend it. And we don't really need to bend it a whole bunch, but it's nice that the tubing is nice and long. We'll use it anyways, so just need a little bit more of an angle out of that guy. And a little bit more. There, that should be plenty. So we want to make sure that this contacts the top of the tank, which it looks like it will, no problem. So that's basically the installation of this portion. So I can test fit it now. So that's good. It's contacting the top of the tank, which is good. Probably too much actually. So anyways, we'll get our clunk line set up now, and I'll come back and show you guys that. So we've got our clunk all done here. This has been installed in the tank and just double checked the length. So when you install this, you want to make sure that it's hitting the backside or getting to the corners, which it is perfectly. It's basically getting right to the very edges of the tank, which is perfect. So now that we've got this all done, we'll put a little bit of sometimes I'll use silicone lube on this, but this one's a decent fit. I don't think it's necessary. So I'll put a little bit of spit on there, get this installed, and we'll get it tightened up. Of course, we want to make sure we got our connections marked, so I'll just take a Sharpie and just mark V and F on the bung fitting so we know which one is which. All right, so one suggestion here, I put some spit on the rubber bung there, and when I installed it, it was quite loose and it would just slide off. So you want to make sure you install that dry. So we cleaned up the tank and the bung with isopropyl alcohol, and now this is staying on. Before we could take this and just kind of twist it and pry it off. So that part's done. If you guys take a look there, you can see the clunk is very close to the back of the tank, which is what we're after. So that tank is good. All right, guys, just working on the tank install for the aircraft. Fairly straightforward. That aluminum plate mounts to the 4 pre-installed locations there. And I just want to share with you a little bit about the foam stuff here. So it's a little hard to see in the fuselage the benefits of this, but it's kind of neat to see in this location. So when you've got that carbon fiber look stuff that they've installed in this aircraft, it does help with rigidity a little bit. So you can see there's a layer of foam and the funny looking carbon stuff, but that's going to help add some rigidity to the balsa. If that wasn't there, this balsa would be really flexible on this hatch as an example. So kind of a neat feature. Definitely helps out with keeping the aircraft nice and solid. And then so this mount here just gets installed right like that with the 4 thumb screws. Tank goes on top and it gets zip tied in place. So we'll just simply take these guys, install them, put some Loctite on them as well because we don't want those vibrating loose, but let's get those installed. All right, so we got our fuel tank mounted, mounted. Had to drill the holes out a little bit because the blind nuts were off, so I just went up 1 size on each of the holes, and it was enough gap that we could install that now. So we'll run our zip ties through here, and then we will leave them as loose as possible and then slip the tank in from the top end. All right, so we've got the tank installed. Took some silicone, put it on the base of the tank. That's gonna keep the tank from moving. I'm just gonna double check that our hatch still fits on the top, but tank is installed. All right, so we are pulling wires through the fuselage here. So we've got our rudder vertical stab wire pulled. It's nice that all the sheathing is already done for you and the lines are already there. So we did have to take the tank back out to straighten our lines here, but no issues there. And we've got lots of extension here, so we'll be able to put our equipment wherever we want. And pretty simple to pull this stuff through. It works out nice. All right, so the elevator wires are a struggle, and the reason we made them a struggle is because we put some heat shrink over top of our wire. So I think 3 formers in, you can see the heat shrink, and that is just for the left elevator lead because that comes across and then goes down the tube. So now our back end is all heat protected, which is awesome, and those lines have all been run forward. All right, while we're working in the front end here, got the vent installed. There's actually 2 holes for the underside of the aircraft. So they're saying one is a vent fitting, one is the filler. We're not using the filler that comes with the aircraft. I think that would be okay. I'm not a big fan of putting your filler underneath there. So we're gonna use a Jersey Modeler filling system, the dry lock port, so that won't be down here. We're just gonna have our vent down here. Okay, so we've got our little heat shield that came with the kit installed. Very simple, just drill some holes, use the pan head screws that are supplied, get it as centered as possible. The pipe looks like it's a fairly tight fit to get in here, so it may take 2 people to get this in. But the goal here is we want to have our pipe installed and coming out as far as possible. I mean, ideally, if we could get that pipe back here, that would be great. We'll see what we can play with and how much space we have to play with. But I'm going to work on getting that pipe installed, and we'll come back and show you what the results are. Okay, so getting the pipe in is definitely a trick. One suggestion for you is do not make this former bigger. It does fit through there. But the easiest way to do that is have a helper, and you're going to take the pipe and you're going to pull it up towards one of the angles. So up towards like 10 o'clock if you're looking at this as a clock. And what that does is it puts this end of the pipe on an angle, and you can tuck this section of the pipe in the former, and then you just have to work on this side getting it through the former. So you could sand that former out, but really it's not a good idea because then you're going to have play in there. So that's my suggestion to you. So we've got it sort of put in place there. The engine is very close to being centered with everything sitting the way it's supposed to go in. So that looks really good. And obviously we're going to play around with that a little bit, but that little Swewin 80 fits in there just beautifully. Really nice. All right, so we've got our pipe screwed down. Now this pipe, I had to add one single washer with each screw underneath the mounting tabs just to bring it up a little bit, about 1 millimeter or so, to bring it perfectly in alignment with the engine. So engine, we've got it pretty much centered. We'll double check it. If we're happy with the engine location, we're going to get that screwed into place as well. Now the big bell mouths like this, you basically want to split it 50-50. So right now, the end of our tail cone is in about 50% on the bell mouth. All right, so we've got the engine bolted down, happy with everything. So what I do now is I take these screws out one at a time, and we will put some thin CA in the hole. And put the screw back in. Now the point of this, and I get hassled by some people with this, but the point of this obviously is to strengthen the threads. But the other thing is it locks the screw in place. So you can get the screw out if you need to, but it's stuck in place now and it's not coming out. This is not the stage that the instructions say to join the fuselage, but we are going to join the fuselage because I feel like that is a good solution to getting the rest of the aircraft done and planning everything out and wiring and stuff. So we've got our carbon rods installed there. The fuselage joint on this aircraft is pretty serious. There's 5 bolts that hold it together. And then also these metal brackets as well too come in a separate bag with instructions, and those metal brackets bolt with the included hardware the 2 fuselage sections together. So very, very serious joining here, the fuselage. Obviously we're going to make sure we use Loctite everywhere, but let's get this fuselage joined. All right, one thing to notice here is you've got 2 different lengths of carbon tubes. So there's long ones and short ones. 2 short ones go on the bottom, 2 longer ones, they're not a huge difference, maybe like 1 inch, go on the top sides. All right, so we've got our UAT figured out here. So we're using one of our UAT mounts available in our store, and we have our map tank. This is the standard flow installed on there. So because of access and the number of holes in the plates of this aircraft, we're gonna high sol this down in place. So I'm gonna get this done, and that'll be the last thing for tonight, and we'll come back to this aircraft tomorrow. All right, so we got all our plumbing done. It's the next day. Our UAT is nice and solid. Used high sol 9462 to glue that in. So we're using a dry brake port, which is compatible with the Jersey model or fueling system. So you can either buy them like this, or you can get them with the flat mount. Small planes, this is nice because it kind of fits anywhere, but the dry brake port, basically you can see there, it doesn't rely just on the cap to seal it. It's got an actual seal in there, and this also clips in nicely with the Jersey modeler fueling system. So you can see there, we've got our Kent dry brake ports or ports there as well. So that works out very good. So this aircraft has nice short leads. If you're following the fuel system, we fill up the fuel system, the UAT fills, comes out this port, goes into the tank, into the fuel or the bung fitting, comes up, comes out the vent. The vent we've looped around to prevent fuel from just spilling out, and that comes out the bottom in our vent fitting. So nice, clean, easy setup, and we're going to go through and tie wire all these connection points as well, and the fuel system will essentially be done. The next thing to do with the fuel system is figure out where we're putting the fuel pump and then run the line to the intake of the fuel pump. Generally, I like to keep that as short as possible, so still doing planning though. Okay, so just kind of doing some planning here. We've got lots of different options for batteries, battery holders, lots of cool items. I think the batteries are going to end up in this location right here. So ultimately, I'm just doing planning for the whole front end. So I think all of our electronics are going to be down in this area, and batteries are going to end up in this area, and our size of the batteries will determine our CG point. So that's kind of the general layout. Won't really commit to any battery layout until we get the plane closer to completion and can check and see what our CG ends up. So right now it's just playing with different layouts and stuff. So these are some items that we're going to be carrying on the channel soon. Some wood boxes, so that's an idea. Maybe we'll do this guy. The other ones that we don't carry on the channel, but I've used in a few of my projects, is the removable battery tray. I like these as well because your batteries are kind of hard mounted into the tray, and the tray just slips in and out for charging purposes and removal. So both good options. Ultimately, the weight needed in the nose is going to determine what we actually end up using. All right, so I think we've got most of the equipment laid out. We have to keep in mind that we will be adding some stuff for the lighting system, so that kind of needs to get tucked in somewhere. So I've seen a couple comments on the videos, and one of the comments that really shows its face right now is one of the downsides with this aircraft is that front tray area has just far too many cutouts, and that is definitely true. It's nice if you want to run stuff underneath the tray, which we are going to do, but really when you're mounting stuff, nothing lines up. Like our gear controller, we've got 2 of the holes that actually hit some structure. So I think what I'm going to do, keeping in the spirit of the carbon look, we're going to make a plate out of our faux ABS carbon. So we're going to have this glued on to some plywood, some thin aircraft ply, and this strip will mount in the equipment section, and this will allow us to firmly mount everything in a position where we're happy with it. So I'm going to pursue that further. Other thing I was toying with last night is the instructions say the rudder needs to be glued on, which of course looks like that is the case because there's no fastening screws. So we will be gluing on the rudder onto the fuselage. I was thinking about creating this aircraft up for shipping. The tip tanks are actually the height of this right here. So if we build a crate and the wings are on each side of the fuselage, it actually works out okay. So it would be nice if this rudder was removable, but obviously that adds more engineering and more cost to the kit for Hangar 9. All right, so when I do my faux carbon pieces like this, I'll just take my piece of plywood that I'm going to use and cut out a little bit bigger shape out of the ABS stuff. And then what I'm going to do is use some spray glue, generally use 3M number 77 adhesive, and you want to put a couple coats on the items, and you want to let this dry or get tacky before you glue them together or place them together. So fairly straightforward, nice heavy coat, and then we'll come back and do one more coat. And it's very sticky, doesn't ever want to come off, basically. Okay, so our 2 layers of glue are just tacky now, so they're still, I guess, slightly wet, but for the most part, they're touchable. So now what we do is we take our ABS stuff, we take our plywood, get it lined up, and stick it down. So we'll cut our tray out of this material, and we'll have probably a couple little strips left, and this is exactly the same setup that I use to mount the Cortex gyros on. So I will make as many as I can, our little mounting plates out of this excess as well. Okay, so that's basically what we're looking for there. That worked out really well and fits nicely in that spot, doesn't add much weight, and really is a better solid connection to mount all of our stuff onto. So happy we did that. I don't know yet if we're going to put any through fittings in here. We may not, I'm not sure, but we're going to screw this down so we still have good access underneath if we need to run wires and stuff, so that's fine. But a lot of our wires can probably come through the side And as long as we organize our stuff properly, that shouldn't be an issue. But we'll see, that's always a work in progress. But that is our front equipment mount. Okay, so just some more planning here. So now that we've got our board finished up, I did my screw layout. So I've got 2 screws in the front here, and we've got 1 single in the back. The reason for the single in the back is because most of our structure is in the middle, back here. So, and then our front, we've got a decent amount of structure all across this section right there. So that's our mounting point. The other thing that we've done is I've drawn out the center of the board, and that's this area right here. So what I'm thinking about is I'll put a through fitting in this area through the board. All of our wiring is going to come up through here, and it can go to the various items on the board, and that'll be fairly clean. So this will be removable or tippable like this, and we'll have good access to all of our items, all of our wires coming through, and then all of our items. So I think that's going to work out well. So that's what we'll plan for. So what that means is all of our wiring needs to come to this point. So all of our wiring we've already done needs to come to this point. We need to cut that out there to make room for it. And that also allows me now to have a clear knowledge and path for our wing connectors. So this is where our wing connectors are coming out. And we'll probably run all of those lines in a piece of snakeskin coming to that center location right there. And again, it'll feed wherever we need to feed it. So now with that planned out, I can work on my wing connector. Just to give you an overview of what our wiring is going to look like, this is our harness for the wings. So we have marked out our right gear, right brake, same thing on the other side obviously. The snakeskin section is basically going from here to about this portion in the fuselage right there. We are going to put our ash lock connector on this side, and that's the wiring harness. So just gonna crimp and do that a whole bunch of times, and we'll have the wiring harnesses ready to install. All right, so we got our wing connectors done here. So some basic things about how I set these up is I have them out enough in the fuselage so they're not gonna get stuck inside or buried inside. And then this one on this side's done the same. So we've got 3 zip ties holding that in place. So it's really not going to go anywhere. So that is done on both sides. We've got those run forward, and also ran the turbine lead. So this is the lead that provides everything for the turbine. That comes underneath the fuel tank and is zip tied in place. We've got a nice little relief there as well, to a nice little strain relief, I should say. There's a view of the top side of the turbine, so that looks good. And then all of our wires coming in the front here. So the front section is starting to get messy. So one of the things that's fairly important here is when you glue your rudder on, you want to make sure that you have access to the servo lead. If you ever need to change the servo out. So if you were to bury the servo connection all the way down here at the base and the rudder is glued on, your only access is through the hole here where your servo is mounted. You're never going to get to this connection. So we've left this long enough. Obviously when the rudder is down all the way, you'll have access to this connection through right there. And what I'm doing to make sure that that stays is just putting a zip tie around the heat sheeting and obviously the wire that's going through it, and that'll prevent this cable from sliding down in that sheathing. All right, so our vertical stab is all ready to glue on. One thing I did here one step further is I just removed the covering on the fuselage side where there's going to be contact with the actual rudder. So on the rudder side, we've got wood all exposed plus some holes. And we're going to put epoxy all over this area as well as the tubes too. So pretty straightforward. We'll just get that epoxied in place and we'll get it taped in place along the leading edge just to pull that joint down nice and tight. Okay, so we got our vertical stab installed, taped in place, nice and solid. And while we were back here, we installed the horizontal stabs or elevators. I really dig this fastening system. I mean, the downside is you've got a big hole here, but really simple to get those installed. So that's a nice system, I like it. And it's a very solid tail section. So that is the back end of this aircraft and things are looking good. So we've got our servo leads to deal with now. I think we're gonna start moving into our plate mounting and getting our ends installed on all of our wires and getting our through fitting installed down here in the center section. So that is going to be the next things that we accomplish. All right, and in preparation to get our wiring done, I've printed up all of our shrink tube labels here for our main surfaces. For that, I use my Dymo label maker, which works with shrink tubing. And definitely a fitting time to bring up channel membership to you guys. What channel membership is it's available on YouTube. It's a paid service. If you decide to become a channel member, we are always working on different perks. The latest perk was if you're a channel member, you got a free trusty bent screwdriver. Wherever you were in the world, you didn't have to pay for it. So that was the cool little perk for December. Don't know if we'll do one every month, but at least that was the latest one. But ultimately what it allows you to do right now is to get access to all of our videos well before anybody else gets to see them. So when I'm recording this video as an example, the Elite Aerosports Razor video is coming out tomorrow, and channel members have been able to see that for a few days now. Check out channel membership if you're interested, guys. It's listed down below. There's a join button below this video, and that'll take you to the channel membership where you can check it out. Okay, so we've got all of our ends crimped on for the servos. The only ones we haven't done yet are the light ones. We'll worry about those after. We've got our board all laid out here with our through fitting installed, and we cut the center section out to allow the through fitting to drop in. So that stuff is all done. Also did up our nose extension, got that marked, and that's installed right here. Now the reason I picked that spot right there is when this retract comes up, this line completely stays out of the way. So this is pretty much the perfect spot for it. If we go down here somewhere and plug it in there, it's way more likely to crimp and stuff. So that's just a great spot. And then of course, previously I had wrapped up the wire like that as well. So great location there. So next thing I'm going to do is get our wires run underneath the board and up through our through fitting location. All right, a little more progress on the installation here. We got our tray installed, all the wires are pulled through, and just doing some rough layout on all the equipment. So just still working on that. It's a work in progress, and just playing around with batteries here. So this aircraft, it's going to be powered with 2 batteries. That's the plan. So we're going to have to find out and see what the weight ends up being, but what I would like to put in here is a single 2-cell 5,000 milliamp Gens Ace 60C battery, which is this guy here. So that will power the control system on the entire aircraft, and then our landing gear will be tied into that as well. Turbine battery, this is a 3-cell 3,300 milliamp battery. So that's going to power the turbine and the lighting system. Now the lighting system that we're putting in here, it's en route, but we basically have 2 tip lights and 2 nav lights on the side. So it won't be a crazy amount of pull, and that's going to be a nice light battery setup. So my hope is that with these batteries in this location, our CG works out where it's in the range. I mean, if we got to add a little bit of lead in the nose, that's fine. I don't really want to have a nose heavy situation. So still cautious with this, but that's where we're at right now. So everything's working out good on this aircraft so far. Happy with everything. We pulled the tape off the vertical stab there, and that is also looking very dapper. All right, so a little more playing around here, and I'm actually really impressed with how this is all going to work out. So we've got one of our new battery trays, which is going to be on the website. We've got some of our new XT60 plugs right here as well. Let's take a closer look at those guys out of the plane. So we've already got some screw-in style XT60 connectors. This is the glue-in version. So there's little slots in the bottom there that allow these to be glued in place. And we've got some flush mount ones and some angle mount ones. I'm excited for these guys. We're going to have them in black, red, and gray. And in this plane in particular, the 339, there's actually a slot right there that they fit in just perfectly. So this whole assembly looks like it was basically designed for this this layout. Those wood battery holders, we're also going to have those on the channel or the website as well. A little hard to see it in there, but this is what they're going to look like, flat packed and very nice. Nice layout, light ply and Velcro can run through the bottom there. I'm excited. That's a cool addition. Okay, so just working on our power distribution system for this aircraft, and this is what I've come up with. So we're going to be using our DSM-10, which is where our power is going to come together. We're going to have our input leads all soldered together with one battery. That's going to come to our DSM-10 and come to our Rex 12 receiver. Off the 2-cell LiPo, we're going to have another power lead. So this is all just going to be soldered together, coming to our SP06 switch. So this is something I didn't realize we were going to add to the system, but because our gear controller is parasitic, we want to have a way to switch the power on and off. So that's one of the benefits of the Jetty system, is this entire plane will be able to turn on and off from our radio. So when we want to turn this plane on, we basically take our switch, turn it on, say yes, turn the airplane on, and the airplane's going to come on. We don't even need to take the front canopy on or off to turn the plane on or off. So this SP06 is actually a pretty cool device. It can be used with any radio system. This doesn't have to be Jetty specific. So if you guys want a way to turn something on and off remotely, this is a great way to do it. Basically plugs into a receiver channel, either uses, like, so if you have 2 gear channels as an example and you want to turn your lights on and off when your gear's down, this is a cool device for that. You just set up another channel on gear and plug this in. Now if it's reversed for some reason, you just take your blue plug there and you flip it over to your other pins, and this is your reversing switch. So pretty cool little device. We'll also have in our custom Sky Candy setup, one of these will be used for the lighting system. So very, very handy device and not very expensive. So we're going to have our SP06. So the extension leads, these actually came with the gear controller and our 2-pin connector, which provides power to our gear controller. So that's going to be the power system on this. The R3 is going to be connected to the DSM-10. That's our remote on-off switch. And then this is going to be plugged into the Rex 12 receiver. That is going to be a channel that's just generic, so this will be on when the plane is on. So that is our setup for the power distribution system. So we're going to get this all soldered together. Off of this connection is going to be another set of leads, and those are going to come to this side right here into our XT60 connector, and there'll be an XT60 plug in there for our battery. So that is our power distribution for the control system on the aircraft. All right, so I think we pretty much decided on using the wood battery tray. I think that's going to work out perfect. We can put both of our batteries on end. So I primed that gray, and then I took some orange paint. This is actually a color match mix that I had from my aviation design diamond, and I think that's a really cool look there with the gray undertones. So it's pretty neat. Anyways, I think that looks neat. So we've painted the battery box. And what I'm going to do next is get the wiring harnesses all soldered up and ready to go. So I think that's going to be a good next step. Okay, so we got our wiring harness all done up here. You can see our different connections. We've got our gear connection, our main connection going to our Rex 12, and we've got our plug-in here. So I just want to show you guys how these connectors work. So these are the various XT60 connectors that we've got on our website. So this is the glue-in one, as we've talked about. So you just run the wires through, solder them to your connector, and then what happens is there's a little tab there that locks in to the XT60 connector. So that is how they work. And what we can do now is we can run all this stuff through our hole for this guy, and then we'll get that glued in place. All right, guys, so we've got our... Man, that turned out really good with the gray inners. I love that. I think that looks really slick. Dang. Okay, so we've got our wiring run here, and we don't have it put in place, but we just got an awesome package. All right, we just got our order from Sky Candy for this aircraft. So Thank you to the team at Sky Candy for sending us the order for the Mb339. Now we're not going to open this box. We are going to wait till the last video to open this box and install the lights on the aircraft. So we do have a custom set in this box as well, which is, it's something that Sky Candy does for us here at the lighter side of RC. They know how we put our lights in and all the ins and outs. They can do it for you as well too. You can order the bare bones light set from their website, and you can also contact them and get them to put a custom set together for you. So stay tuned for that in the next episode. We're gonna finish this video off, guys, with a couple suggestions to you guys. Number one, check out the other channel that we just started. It is called the RC Air Experience, a completely separate channel on YouTube. It's with me and my friend Anthony. It's a podcast channel. Tonight, actually, not that it's tonight in the video, but tonight when we're recording this, we are interviewing Greg and Jenny Alderman from Jag RC, Heli Direct, Boomerang RC. So that's upcoming on the channel. We've got 3 podcasts uploaded already. So I encourage you guys to check that out. There are links in the video description down below for that separate channel. Don't forget about channel membership as well too. Highly suggest you do that. We've got some cool different ideas and maybe some different channel memberships coming up soon. And the last thing is Lighter Side of RC After Dark. At the After Dark channel, what we do there is we do live streams here from the shop, about 2 hours every 2 weeks. So that 2 hours, you're seeing stuff way in advance, and there's also a lot more details. So like the one we just did a couple days ago, we were working on the 339, we ran the Sweetwind 400 turbine, and you see in real time all the effort we put into videos. The big positive is during those live streams, you can communicate with us, ask us questions, and we'll answer them on the video. So it's a lot of fun. We enjoy it. I enjoy the company we have here, and I enjoy you guys watching the lighter side of RC After Dark. So that's everything for the 339, guys. We do have one more video coming on this aircraft. We didn't wrap it up all in this video, so stay tuned for that one, and we'll see you in the next video.